Rhea, almost every week, your recommendations involve murder.
Oh, yeah,
Have
but
you
sometimes
ever,
they're nice stories.
have your, have you ever considered murdering someone yourself?
I'm looking at him,
Well,
and it's not Jay.
thank goodness. Because I can't take you, Rhea. You'll take me right out.
Let me make the record clear here. I'm not the only one. I've known that woman a long time.
And welcome back, everybody, to a very special episode of the TV show. My name is Jay Black, joined by the wine-drinking Rhea Hughes. We have our wine there, Rhea.
We will need it today.
We're going to need it today. And by the bespectacled Angelo Catati. Hello, Angelo.
Yeah, I'm going to read something. That's why I got the specs on.
Yeah, let's roll right into it. Angelo has a prepared statement that I think is wonderful, and I want all of you guys to hear it. So let's go, Angelo.
Okay. Hey, we have reached a crossroad, both in our country and on this podcast. I have fought Jay Black for years about politicizing our show. I said nobody wins because we're all doing what polarizes the audience. The people who agree with you love you more. The people who don't may leave you for good. But I profited from a half a century of freedom of speech, and it's time for me to pay back my debt. I am disgusted by what's happening right now to the First Amendment and by how the current administration bullied Disney and ABC into censoring one of its media critics. To grasp the truth of what happened to Jimmy Kimmel last week, you need to understand the full context of the remarks that almost ended his 20-year tenure as a late-night host. The censors who now run our country took Kimmel's one misinterpretation during a discussion of the Charlie Kirk tragedy, the assassin's political point of view, and made it into a capital offense. Kimmel's main point that the Trump administration was trying to stifle any commentary that didn't coincide with its ideology was true at the time, true long before the Kirk tragedy, and will remain true for as long as Trump is in office. The FCC chairman, Brendan Carr, Trump's hand-picked toady, called Kimmel's remark the sickest conduct possible, ignoring all the times his boss used the bully pulpit to spout falsehoods about election results, deny sexual abuse allegations for which he was found guilty, and call his dissenters fat slobs, liars, and losers. We have a podcast here, as so many others do, because this country was built on a foundation of being free to speak our minds, whether what we say proves to be true or not. I survived 33 years at WIP doing exactly that. And whether I was right or wrong, the companies I worked for supported me, even when pressured by powerful critics to silence me, or there would be severe business repercussions. Last Friday, I made a business decision of my own. I canceled my subscriptions to Hulu and Disney. I have no plans to watch ESPN ever again. A small sacrifice, really, given how far that network has fallen. If you don't care about freedom of speech, you're going to consider taking the same stand. The only thing the CEOs of Disney, Nexstar, Sinclair, and every other greedy corporation in America understands is the bottom line. So let's exercise freedom of speech ourselves this time and tell them very clearly that they all need to grow a spine and stand up to the biggest threat to the First Amendment in our lifetimes. It's time for all of us to take a stand. President Trump is only all-powerful if we allow him to be. In my eyes, someone who voted for him 9 years ago, he has forfeited that right. He needs to understand there is a price to pay for threatening our democracy. Abraham Lincoln once described America as a democracy of the people, by the people, for the people. We all need to remind Trump and all of his many enablers that their power is dependent solely on our support. The only way to stop a bully is to stand up to him. If not now, when?
Thank you very much. That was very powerful. And I can say that you speak very much for me on this, Angelo. I agree with you fully on it. And I just want to make one small thing, a distinction clear. It is important to realize that companies have free speech too. So if they don't want somebody on the air, that's fine. Yeah, but the problem with this wasn't that ABC made a straight business decision. It was that there were pressure coming from the government to the affiliate conglomerates that then bullied ABC. That's the problem. It isn't, if ABC thought that Jimmy Kimmel sucked, this is not a problem at all. When Roseanne made all those terrible comments and ABC cut her loose, the president wasn't calling ABC to make that happen. That's the problem here. And Rhea, I know that you are a little, you want to say a little bit upfront too about like what you can and can't say.
Yeah, well, so, I don't watch late night TV because I'm never awake at that time. So when I saw everything, I went back and I watched what Kimmel said. And, because I'm not a political person. I knew very little about Charlie Kirk. What I saw when it happened is, number one, it was, as Angelo, you stated, a tragedy. Two little kids are left without a father. A young woman's left without her husband. And I was like, this is really horrible. So I went back and I listened to it and I go, well, he didn't say anything about Charlie Kirk.
No.
He was taking that, somebody was using this for political gain. And that's all both sides do now. What I would caution, the current administration and the current is when somebody else gets in power, they're going to do the same thing to you. It can't be allowed in any way, shape, or form. Jay, you're right that, if he wasn't good, let ABC handle it. You can't get pressured by the government because then we're not really America. And here's the other thing. He's a comedian. He is not a broadcast journalist. He is a comedian. And Angelo, as you and I both know, we had to ride herd on Joe Conklin to make sure that he was just never crossing lines. But I didn't think that he said anything about Charlie Kirk. He was saying something about, Trump's political party. And that's what got him. To me, if Kimmel had said something nasty about Charlie Kirk, it wouldn't have been the time. It just happened. It's an assassination. The entire country should be against that. But to me, he didn't say anything that rose to the level of getting him censored like that. And it's scary, especially for someone who's in broadcast. And I'm not a journalist. I'm as Angelo, as you know, we're entertainers, but we do it in sports.
Well, I got to go to the best journalism school in the world, Columbia University Graduate School of Journalism. And we learned a lot about the First Amendment, all right? And what we ultimately learned is that when it's tested, the people who are surrounding it are the ones that have to govern it. Right now, you've got corporations. This Sinclair, let's talk about Sinclair, which last night along with Nexstar, denied more than 20% of this country the right to listen to Jimmy Kimmel because they didn't like what he was saying. They were censoring people there. And here's the hypocrisy of it. The vice chairman of Sinclair, Jason Smith, here's what he wrote recently. We believe broadcasters have a responsibility to educate and elevate respectful, constructive dialogue in our communities. Now, I ask you, how can you say that when you are basically one of the minions who are doing whatever Donald Trump tells them to do? Because that's all they are. They merely spout his gospel. That's all they care. Jay, all they care about is placating the president, getting his approval. Have you seen the people in his administration now, starting with the press secretary, who basically just publicly lavish him with embarrassing praise, even when he is ridiculously wrong? We here somewhere have to stand up to that. We can't just let this garbage keep going on.
What I keep hearing from people, and it's such a disingenuous comment when they say things like, "Can we get back to Johnny Carson, who never made fun of the president? Well, he made fun of both sides. He was never." Like, yeah, you know what? We can get back to that when we don't have a president doing the things that Donald Trump is doing. If you want to get back,
Jay, no, Carson was extremely political, extremely. And no one ever had the audacity to challenge Johnny Carson because back then they had an actual respect for the First Amendment, which nowadays comes second to commerce. Oh, where do I make the money? I don't give a damn about the First Amendment if I can put more money in my pocket. That's what's going on with Sinclair right now. That's going on with Nexstar. They're not making decisions based on the First Amendment. They're making decisions based on the fact that they have pending mergers that they want to go through for billions of dollars. And you know why ABC put Kimmel back on the air last night? Because millions of people cost them billions of dollars by canceling the subscriptions. If that didn't happen, they would have not put Jimmy Kimmel back on the air.
It was a mistake by Sinclair and Nexstar because I was looking at the numbers as of 11 a.m. this morning on YouTube, which it was available to those people who didn't have that. It's got 11.6 million views, and that's just as 11 a.m. this morning.
Well, one of Kimball's best lines, Rhea, was, we're not getting any ratings, because that was one of the dumbass comments made by Trump. He said, well, tonight we are, which was, thanks, President. You got me some big numbers for a change. Thank you.
I want to throw out one thing about the fact that so many people canceled. And I was thinking about this, that this boycott was different than any other boycott because of how easy and quick it was for people to do it. Like when Target gets in trouble, it takes 6 months for them to even see the results in their sales. The ABC or Disney could watch the numbers go down in real time on their laptops. So I do wonder if the reason why this worked as well as it did was how quick it was.
And also there were people like Joe Rogan and Ted Cruz who came out against it. I mean, when Angelo told me that, I went, Ted Cruz came out against it? So you had people who are on the other side, politically, who were like, this can't be allowed to happen.
I wanted to talk for a second about Jimmy Kimmel's monologue. I assume at this point we've all seen it. Did you catch the Jack Paar reference when he opened Angelo?
No. What did he say?
So Jack Paar famously walked
yeah.
And he was off the air for months.
Yeah.
And when he came back, his opening line was, as I was saying.
Yes, that was
and that was
didn't hit me, but you're right.
Yeah, it's a nice nod to classic television. But what do we think? I thought it was note perfect. Angelo, did you agree? Did you think Kimmel hit all the right notes? Because we were worried that he'd come out and apologize.
He was in a incredibly pressurized situation. Yeah. He's a comic who had to make a bold statement about the First Amendment. So he had to maintain some comedic elements and still get the point across. Right. The best thing that Jimmy Kimmel did in that incredibly great monologue is what he didn't do. He didn't apologize. Right. He didn't do anything wrong, and he didn't apologize. And the bullying that took place after the fact to weaponize the politics of the situation, to exploit it, did not work because he didn't apologize. He risked his career. He told his bosses, I'm not apologizing. I was in this spot a dozen times, at least, in my radio career.
Oh, yes.
Rhea was there for a lot of it.
Yep.
And they would say, you're going to have to say this. You're going to have to say that. Without exception, I went, no, fire me. Fire me. And the reason I said that was I realized the minute I traded that in, the minute I began to speak their language instead of my language, which they hired me to do, I wasn't doing my show anymore. So I constantly pushed back on it. The pushback now, let me give you an example of how bad this situation is right now. I want to use David Muir as an example. David Muir is today, whether you like him or not, his ratings are the best, all right? He's Edward R. Murrow in the 50s. He's Walter Cronkite in the 70s. He's Peter Jennings from his own network in the 90s. He's the guy with the power. He's done nothing publicly to take a stand against the company that was basically abusing the First Amendment before they reversed their decision on Kimmel. No, Murrow would have stepped up and screamed from the heavens. He's the guy who stood up to McCarthyism. And
100%.
Cronkite, during the Vietnam War, he basically trashed somebody he considered his friend, LBJ. These guys stood up for something. David Muir is a huckster. David Muir had the power to tell Robert Iger, the CEO of Disney, and all his bosses at ABC, don't do that. If you do it, I'm coming out and ripping you on the air. And guess what would have happened at that point? They would have bowed down because David Muir's making the money. They understand people who are making the money. And that's what the fact that that guy didn't do it. Look, I would say I'm going to boycott him too, but I can't stand him anyway. I haven't watched him in 2 years. All right. He's a fraud. Stand up for something. Are you a journalist or are you just a carnival barker? Stand up for something. Talk to these people who you have power over and tell them they're wrong. Where the hell are you? And make it public so we know somebody out there on the inside is defending the First Amendment.
Rhea, I think a bunch of other people kind of expose themselves as being either pro free speech or pro their own pocket here. I just want to throw out a couple of names and tell me what you thought of their response. We got John Oliver. Angelo mentioned David Muir, Bob Iger. I was impressed by Michael Eisner came out and trashed Iger, which was shocking to me. The View, Obama, Clinton, Ted Cruz. Did any of those jump out as shocking or surprising? Or...
Well, it was the Ted Cruz one. I was really surprised at because I generally don't agree with a lot of the stuff that I hear from him. But the problem is, this was to me, again, I kept rereading it and rewatching the original comment going, this to me didn't reach a level where this type of measure was warranted. Okay. So now where's the line for everybody else? If somebody says, and again, he's a comedian. So, I didn't think it, I just think where we have to really be very strong about like what Angelo's saying, with the boycott is they're going to do this again. And it's going to get worse and worse for minor things to the point where people who do, nighttime shows, you have to make a decision. Are you going to keep doing it or are you going to pull your punches? And then when we get to that point in our society, you have taken away free speech.
Yeah, they call it flack. You throw up enough, but it makes it harder and harder to say anything, so you don't say anything at all. And I appreciate you guys, you listeners, bearing with us.
Let me get a couple of these names myself, Jay. Okay, John Oliver, John Stewart, absolutely brilliant on this. Both
agreed.
Fantastic, standing right up to him, looking him in the eye. Do it to me next, and there are corporations behind them. John Oliver even made fun of it at one point, hearing that maybe Paramount was going to buy HBO Max. Right. Even that. No, those guys stood up. Here's two other people I want you to keep in mind who are letting America down right now. Democrats, all right? President Obama, President Bill Clinton, both of them. These are guys who still wield power, certainly within their own party. I understand Obama came out, but not strong enough. And Bill Clinton didn't say a word. These guys are the people that maintained the democracy during their tenures as president. And they didn't hold a news conference to say, bleep you. No, you can't do this. And how dare you corporations cave in to this censorship? Where the hell were they, Jay?
And Clinton got destroyed by late night TV when he was president. Yeah. I mean, they had a field day with him.
I know
and
they
I don't
did.
believe he ever shut them down.
I'd like to throw George W. Bush into that mix. How about all three former presidents? Yes. What if they had a press conference that said this will not stand, and the three of us together, bipartisan, saying we want this to happen because the Constitution is above all of us? That would have been powerful.
Where was that, Jay? Wasn't that a good counteraction to what we saw? They did nothing.
They released the same tepid stuff from the early 2000s that worked when the democracy was rolling, but doesn't work when it's under attack. If the democracy is under attack, you got to fight back. And that's what I hope the people who are listening right now understand. We had to have a conversation about this. It's important because if free speech goes away, this podcast goes away, every podcast goes away, and this becomes the President Trump is great television hour where we sit there and talk about how fantastic he is. So before I move on, does anybody have any last thoughts? I want to make sure everybody has said their piece.
And I agree with what you just said, and I think a lot of people are going to be offended by this. There are a lot of people that love Donald Trump. And I just said before, I voted for him.
You can love him and disagree with what took place there. I have, people who are very close to me, Angelo, who are big Trump people. We get along totally fine, and they didn't like it. So, I mean, you can absolutely be a huge supporter of his and go, this was the wrong decision. It was petty and short-sighted. And I think even reasonable people who are Trump, supporters, at least in my life, said that.
I don't hate everything that Donald Trump does now. I agree with some of his policies. What I will not stand for as an American is him trying in some way to censor this country. I won't, because I was brought up in a journalism world where you stood up to the death to protect the freedom of speech. And I'll do that to this day. That's one thing they trained me at Columbia that I never forgot. If we don't have that, we don't have a lot. We have to fight for that.
I think that's a beautiful statement, and I appreciate all of you guys listening to this. And why don't we change the subject a little bit, Angelo, to somebody who's never let us down, to somebody that has always been there for us, a guy that we call Steven Singer. Can you tell me about Steven Singer, Angelo?
See, now, if you're going to argue for commerce for someone who embodies honesty and integrity, Steven Singer. All right. This is the best thing I could say about Steven, right? You go into Steven Singer's place, you're not going to get hypocrisy. You're not going to get fractured truth. You're going to look at a price tag on a piece of jewelry, and you're going to go, wow, that's $270. I wonder what it's actually worth. You know what it's worth? $270.
$270.
He doesn't play games with that. You don't have to negotiate with him. That's the best price he can offer to you, and he has enough respect to you to not think he can bilk you out of an extra $30 because you're too dumb to negotiate. He's an honest man who sells great product at a fair price. I don't know that there's a better testament you can give for somebody in the jewelry business.
And what I love, you go onto his website, and Andrew, I go on and check it out all the time. You're right. The prices are on there. You go on and you see a piece of jewelry. That is the price. And there are prices all over. You can get a beautiful bracelet for $100, or if, you want to go wild, you can go wild. It's all on there, and it's a 100-day guarantee, by the way, 100%. After like 99 days, you decide you don't like it, you can return.
Absolute. Perfect. Steven Singer Jewelers, the other corner of 8th and Walnut. I hate StevenSinger.com.
It's
Freudian slip.
Freudian slip. Day. Rhea, I'm going to tell you something. I believe, and I don't know for sure, that our phones listen to us, because I don't watch British shows with any regularity, but my phone advertises BritBox and Acorn and all these, and I'm convinced it's because I have it next to me while you're giving the British thing. So my phone's going, hey, Jay, you want to see this cozy murder show, right? And I'm like, well, I mean, I'm happy you're telling me this, but I don't know for sure. Rhea, what do you got for us this week on the British Quarter?
Well, speaking of cozy, I think I've done too many cozies in a row, so I had to go a little bit more hardcore. And it's a serial murder show, which I have not done in a long time. I've kind of gotten burnt out on them, because I began to think that serial murderers basically live next door to everybody in every country. So I kind of stopped watching it. But this one intrigued me. It's called The Crow Girl on Acorn. It's based off of a Swedish novel that was very popular, but it's based in England. And it's a little hard to follow in the beginning, a little bit like Unforgotten, which, by the way, I think the last episode for Unforgotten is dropping next week, and I'll be able to give my review. What I'm saying is The Crow Girl starts out with 3 divergent storylines, which makes it a little tough, but not as tough as Unforgotten. So it opens with a detective, Jeanette Kilburg. She's at home with her husband, who's an artist, and her son. She gets a call. They found a body in a bag. So she and her partner go out to check it out. Then it hops to this psychotherapist who has to talk to this pedophile. They call them pedos in England. Pedo dentist who's been arrested. Will make your skin crawl as she's interviewing him, in a police department. And you're going, what does this have to do with this dead body. Then it flips to asylum seekers from Afghanistan who are in England. By the second episode, they start to draw the strings together. So what it turns out with the detective, all of a sudden, there are bodies turning up in bags in different places around the city. They realize they have a serial on them, serial killer, somehow tied to the dentist, who, when he gets word of it, becomes very frightened. All of a sudden, his ego takes a hit. They don't know why. And it's tied into the asylum seekers. So it's a really layered story, and it comes together pretty quickly in the second episode. 6 episodes, called The Crow Girl on Acorn. It's dark. I'm not going to lie to you. There's some lighthearted moments in it, and that's based off of the lead detective and her partner kind of add a little levity to it. But it's a little bit darker of a show than I've recommended. And so far, I like it.
Very cool. Thank you, Rhea. Angelo, you got anything for us this week?
Yeah, I do. But first, Rhea, almost every week, your recommendations involve murder.
Oh, yeah, but sometimes they're nice stories.
Have you ever considered murdering someone yourself?
I'm looking at him, and it's not Jay.
Oh, thank goodness. Because I can't take you, Rhea. You'll take me right out.
Let me make the record clear here. I'm not the only one. I've known that woman a long time. Anyway, yes, in order to take my mind off all this heavy First Amendment stuff, I found something that was fairly light and incredibly entertaining. Documentary, Netflix just dropped, AKA Charlie Sheen. Now, the great thing about this was they had tons of great video, because most of what he did on his climb up, Apocalypse Now, all the movie, his dad was on that. Then he did Platoon, and then his meltdown. And now after the meltdown, they had tons of all that stuff. And he did an interview, and it looked to me to be as honest and as clear-headed as you could ever expect coming from Charlie Sheen. I thought the whole thing was compelling, interesting, and he's really done a lot of negative things in his life, a lot of them. And you still, toward the end, started feeling like you were rooting for him, which is really an amazing thing. I was never a huge fan. I loved 2.5 Men. It was one of my favorite shows.
It was 2.5 Men was one of my favorite shows. And when they replaced him with Ashton Kutcher, I just couldn't. It was not the same.
You're exactly right. He was brilliant at that, brilliant at a lot of other stuff that he did in TV and in movies. And that comes out too. And the other thing is Martin Sheen, who's somebody I really loved his work of. What I learned from that is, man, you don't get better fathers than that guy. He stood by to all of it. He stood by. And he's still with us in his late 80s. And it's only 2 episodes. And it's incredibly powerful and extremely entertaining. AKA Charlie Sheen on Netflix.
I want to say 2 quick things about that. One, Angelo, I always have fond memories in a weird way of his breakdown, because that's when I first started going onto your show, was during the Charlie Sheen meltdown. And every week you had me report on Tiger Blood and everything else that he was saying. I have memories of that.
Well, yeah. And we remember Joe Wachter had taken all these little lines he had done, especially winning, and he would sprinkle for years. We used those as what you call drops into the middle of conversations and stuff. And it did well by him. I thought in the end he should. I even read the book based on that. I read the book, and the book is terrific too. He actually now, I have a much more positive feeling about him than I thought I ever would.
If you ever
let me go over what.
Oh, yeah.
You want me to go over what we... All right. If you want to see... All right, here we go. If you want to see Kimmel's opening statement last night, go on YouTube. And the reason I say that, because if you go on ABC or Hulu, you'll be supporting the people who helped to censor him. So I would say, watch it on YouTube. Rhea said it's already over 11 million views. And thank you, President Trump, for finally getting Jimmy Kimmel the attention he deserves. Really much so. John Oliver did an amazing job on HBO Max. Jon Stewart has been incredible on Paramount Plus if you want to see that kind of thing. If you're looking for entertainment not involving this, The Crow Girl is now available on Acorn and AKA Charlie Sheen on Netflix. And we are going to post my statement on your social media. I am not on social media. If you see my name on social media, it's not me. It's somebody pretending to be me, and probably more eloquently than I could be. But we will put that statement up, and you can love it or hate it or whatever. We're not going to talk politics every week here. I promise you that. But if we ignored this story, we'd be ignoring freedom of speech, which is why we're here.
That man right there is Angelo Cataldi. If you like that statement, and how could you not? It was such a beautifully written thing, Angelo. Buy his book, Loud, which you can get on Amazon.com, AngeloCataldi.com, or you can have him whisper it to you on Audible.com. Rhea Hughes is always great on this show, and she's also always great on the WIP Morning Show, which you can watch every day on YouTube. After you watch Jimmy Kimmel, switch over to Rhea Hughes. And she's also
on Instagram. Yeah. Rhea Hughes, 94 WIP.
And if you enjoyed the politics of this show, you can find way more politics on my social media, which, as Rhea knows, is a little bit on the left. It's just
Jay. Angelo had no idea.
I had no idea.
Jay lost his damn mind.
I had no idea. I said, Jay, no, you're probably sensitive about this stuff. Rhea goes, no, he's a lunatic on social media. Oh, okay then. Well, that's easier.
Yeah. So it would be with pleasure that I will post that statement, Angelo. And follow me on Threads at Hello Jay Black, or Twitter is Jay Black is funny. And guys, we're going to be back next week. Hopefully there won't be another constitutional crisis. We'll just be talking TV. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks to Jared Clapper, our producer, and thanks to Steven Singer, our sponsor. See you guys next week.